The silence was broken by an explosion of screams on set. Denzel Washington, in the midst of a break to review his lines, clearly heard the director's cutting voice. "If you can't do something this simple, maybe you shouldn't be here." The comment was directed at a young intern, who lowered his head in embarrassment. But what caught Denzel's attention was the tone. There was something more than impatience there. It was contempt, laden with a veiled prejudice he recognized well. Without hesitation, Denzel walked toward the center of the commotion. The tension was palpable as he stood beside the intern. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" His voice was low, but carried the weight of an authority that no one dared challenge. The director tried to formulate his words, but Denzel, impassive, interrupted him. "If you want to disrespect someone here, then disrespect me. Let's see how that works." The scene was witnessed by the entire crew, but what no one knew was that this moment would be the catalyst for something much larger. A brutal exposure of Hollywood's toxic practices and a personal journey that would mark Denzel forever. Denzel grew up in Mount Vernon, New York, a small city where violence and limited opportunities were constant realities. His mother, a strong and religious woman, was the anchor of their family, always reminding Denzel and his brothers that despite the difficulties, self-respect and dignity were non-negotiable. In his teenage years, he planned for situations of discrimination that shaped his worldview. He never forgot the day he walked into a clothing store with a friend and was closely followed by an employee who presumed they wanted to steal something. "Never let them define you," his mother said later. That advice stayed with him forever. When he began his theater career, Denzel saw how roles for Black actors were limited and often stereotypical. But instead of accepting any job, he was selective, building a reputation for integrity and excellence. "If I don't respect my art, how can I expect the world to?" he told his colleagues. This stance led him to become one of the most respected actors of his generation, but it also attracted enemies. Many in the industry considered him difficult for not conforming to the status quo, but Denzel knew that every battle he faced was necessary to pave the way for others. When he saw the young intern being humiliated on set, he felt a déjà vu. That scene was a reflection of the challenges he had faced early in his own career. But he also knew that this time, he had the power to change things decisively. After the incident, Denzel called the young intern over to talk. The boy, named Marcus, was 21 and an aspiring filmmaker. He was visibly shaken but tried to downplay what had happened. "I don't want to cause trouble," he said, looking at the floor. Denzel, firm, replied, "Sometimes causing trouble is the only way to solve problems." He then shared his story with Marcus. The young man revealed he came from a humble neighborhood in Los Angeles and had worked tirelessly to get where he was, but always felt unwelcome. As he listened, Denzel remembered himself in his early days in Hollywood. The insecurity, the fear of making mistakes, the feeling that he needed to be twice as good to be considered half-worthy. He knew exactly what Marcus was facing. In the following days, Denzel closely observed the director's behavior, which seemed intent on humiliating Marcus publicly. Every correction was made with sarcasm, every mistake amplified. It wasn't just contempt, it was an abuse of power. Determined to act, Denzel began discreetly documenting these incidents, relying on the support of other crew members. He knew he would face resistance, but he also knew he needed to expose the truth. At the same time, he started investing time in Marcus, sharing advice and stories about his own journey. "You're not here by luck," he said one night. "You're here because you deserve to be, and no one can take that away from you." But as Denzel plotted his strategy, the director discovered he was being watched, and he was not willing to go down without a fight. The tension on set became impossible to ignore. The director, realizing he was being challenged, began spreading rumors that Denzel was interfering with the creative process. "He thinks he can boss me around because he's a star," he said loudly during a break, making sure everyone heard. But Denzel was not known for avoiding necessary conflicts. He confronted the director in a production meeting, where Marcus was present, "What you call creative work, I call abuse," Denzel said firmly. "And I will not allow this to continue, especially with someone who is here to learn." The executives tried to smooth over the situation, calling for calm. But the director, now visibly irritated, did not back down. "You're just an actor. Don't interfere with how I run my set." Denzel coldly replied, "I am an actor, but I am also a human being, and this is not leadership. It's oppression." As the crew watched in silence, Marcus began to realize something important. For the first time, someone was standing up for him not as an obligation, but because they believed he had value. In that moment, a courage he didn't know he possessed awoke within him. However, the confrontation had consequences. The next day, Denzel was called into a specific meeting with the producers, who advised him to let the matter go to avoid jeopardizing the film's competition. Denzel calmly responded, "If my integrity is stained by standing up for what is right, then so be it." Meanwhile, the director intensified his hostility. He began issuing stricter orders, creating an even more toxic environment. Marcus, now aware of Denzel's support, decided to document everything that was happening. He knew the director was not just a problem for him, but for anyone else who dared to dream big on that set. Denzel realized the time to act had come. He called a meeting with the entire crew, including the director, to finally expose what was happening. But what he didn't know was that the director had a secret weapon. In the meeting, Denzel spoke with his characteristic eloquence. "What is happening on this set is not just a leadership issue. It is a reflection of an industry that often overlooks talents like Marcus because of where they come from or how they look. This needs to stop." Crew members began sharing their own experiences, rallying around Denzel and Marcus. But before the support could solidify, the director played his final card, an edited video showing Denzel in a moment of frustration on set, distorting the facts to make it seem like he was the real problem. The room fell silent as the director played the video. "Here's your hero," he said with a cynical smile. The crew appeared confused, but Denzel remained calm. He knew this was a desperate attempt to divert attention from the real issue. Before anyone could react, Marcus spoke up. Trembling but determined, he addressed the director directly. "That video doesn't change what you did to me," he said. "I may be young and inexperienced, but I know the difference between leadership and humiliation. And everyone here knows it too." Marcus's words sparked a moment of solidarity. Other crew members began to speak up, sharing stories of how the director had treated others similarly. The manipulation attempt failed. Realizing he was losing control, the director stormed out of the meeting in a rage. The producers, finally aware of the gravity of the situation, promised to investigate the allegations. But Denzel knew that mere words were not enough. It was time to turn that moment into something bigger. With the director temporarily removed while investigations were conducted, the set fell into an odd silence. The absence of his oppressive behavior felt like a break, but the atmosphere of tension still lingered. Marcus, however, began to gain confidence. With Denzel's support and that of his fellow crew members, he finally felt he belonged in a space that had once seemed inaccessible. Denzel, for his part, knew the fight was far from over. He used his influence to rally the crew around a larger idea, to turn that incident into a lesson for the entire industry. "If we want real change, we need to start here, now," he said during a meeting with the producers. The executives, initially reluctant, began to realize that Denzel was right. He proposed creating a program for marginalized young professionals in film, offering training and opportunities on set. "If we don't open the doors, we're just perpetuating the problem," he stated. In the meantime, Marcus threw himself into his work with renewed vigor. Inspired by Denzel, he began using his free time to film short clips documenting the experiences of other crew members, many of whom had also faced discrimination in the past. These clips soon reached Denzel, who saw in them the potential for something greater. However, the fired director was not willing to accept defeat. He filed a lawsuit against Denzel, claiming his career had been unfairly destroyed. The news stirred up a media frenzy, and many questioned whether Denzel had gone too far. During a press conference, Denzel spoke to reporters with his usual calm. If fighting for respect and dignity is going too far, then maybe we should all go a little further. His words echoed in the headlines, turning the controversy into a rallying cry for justice. The turning point came when Marcus presented his clips in a crew meeting. The documented stories were so raw and powerful that many were brought to tears. "This is what's at stake," Marcus said, looking directly at the producers. "It's not just about me. It's about all of us." Marcus's presentation became the catalyst for real change. The producers not only implemented the program suggested by Denzel, but also financed Marcus's project as a short film to be showcased at film festivals. The title? Voices in Silence.